dive right into questions for Coach Ryan.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to ask if I wanted an opening statement.
I know better, so I'm not going to do that.
No, the only opening statement was the players asked that if you ask them a question down in Chicago, they asked me to ask you if you would not ask the same question
To that same player.
to that same player. Because they've had an experience where somebody in the room asked the same questions that they asked in Chicago, which I'm sure you're allowed to do. But they were just looking to save time. I said, well, maybe they think you might give a different answer this time. No, I'm just,
Questions anyone?
I think they're hungry.
Bo, Trayvon played a lot of basketball this offseason. I know he went to the Philippines and did the Chris Paul camp, I think. In what ways does he look better to you this year, more confident, all those things?
Well, he's more confident because he's a year older and he's been through a lot of seasoning, basketball-wise. The experience traveling and meeting different groups of people and on the kind of mission that they were on, that's a great experience. So I was more than happy for him to be able to do that, knowing how hard he works and that he would come back in shape and not lose any of the conditioning that some guys lose in the summer. Along the lines of that question, you think about, because some guys my age were talking to me about, can you remember starting practice October 15th every year, and that's the day that you were to start getting into shape in the 60s and into the 70s, and then preseason conditioning, more emphasis on conditioning out of the traditional season, and to think where we are now with their bodies, with how much they do in the summer, with the hours that we can be with them, and that they can be in the weight room together, because everybody's taking classes, everybody's trying to graduate on time for all the right reasons. But, you know, you really have to keep an eye on the physical conditioning and how much that the players are getting now. We went to once a week on the hill rather than twice, which some of you know, but we still got the 20, and still the 20 without. Does anybody in here remember the coach putting 4 trash cans in every corner of the gym when you started October 15th? And it wasn't for empty water bottles? Does anybody remember that? So, Tom, you know what I'm talking about. And now it's. Oh, okay. Well, but people know that. Okay, now we got to get in shape. No. This is a full-time thing. Strength and conditioning, and I'm just trying to make sure that our guys stay sharp. And every coach is going through this. With this being a little bit different, starting in the past couple of years with the summers, and we just got to keep our eye on it. Fortunately, here at Wisconsin, we have such great training staff and doctors and medical help and people that know what they're doing. It really helps our guys. But Trey had a chance to. I wasn't worried about him getting out of shape, doing something different, and it was a great experience for him.
What's happening, Coach? You talk about strength and conditioning right now, getting prepared for the season. I don't remember Wisconsin ever being projected this high or having these high expectations going into a season as far as basketball is concerned. At least thinking about maybe, a few years back when expectations may not have been as high, what's the difference in preparing for a season when expectations are high, when you are a top 5 team, when you are projected to win the Big Ten and coming off a Final Four season?
Well, first of all, you take that in its focus, the Final Four experience, right here, take a look at it. Okay, that stays right there. Now we move to here. So the other thing about expectations is that we were picked first, 07, was it, Tom? Well, who pointed that out? Jim? Oh, no, not '06. We had lost all those senior. Yeah, yeah, in the fall of '06, right. And Orlando Tucker and Brian Butch were on the cover of a certain magazine. And we lost on a runner at Ohio State after Brian Butch had dislocated his elbow. So that was expectations. We were picked to win the league. Came up a little short. So I don't see our guys talking any differently or acting any differently on the practice floor simply because other people are mentioning that we might be pretty good. I don't see any difference. If you're asking me for, okay, how do you think they'll handle this? They know that there were 8, 9 losses in there that we could have turned around by doing some things a little better. I'd rather have them thinking how they could turn some of those things around rather than dwelling on people telling them, hey, you guys ought to be pretty good this year because you got a lot of guys back. You have this, you have that. That's happened to a lot of other teams in the past where things didn't quite go the same the next year. So just think about what we can do and keep working on the weaknesses.
Well, the changes you referenced about strength and conditioning over the years, has that allowed you to get off to a quicker start in terms of coaching and teaching once you get into the formal practices once October 15th rolls around?
Let me put it this way. Without a doubt, having a couple hours and having a little more access with our players across the country definitely helps the teachers of the game. So if you have a staff, and I'm very fortunate, they are a very, very good teaching staff. They're not just here because of their looks, because they can just recruit, because they can bring me 2 or 3 AAU players from a team they used to work on. I've got guys who can teach and work with players and get them better. So it's definitely an advantage for Wisconsin.
Coach, back here, want to preface my question by saying that I ask it in respect, but as you mentioned Thursday, this is your 43rd year doing this thing. I'm just curious, where is your energy level, your drive entering this season, coming off an accomplishment that a lot of coaches don't get to experience?
Well, I mean, it probably took 3 days after the weekend of the Final Four to start looking at some film and taking a look at some DVDs and breaking them down and thinking about some things. How are we going to replace Ben Bruss rebounding? How are we going to replace his stretching of the defense? And will this guy be better at a 3 or at a 4? Will this guy be better as a 2? So right away, I was already thinking about how we can be better and how to best use the players that we have this year. So whether it's my 43rd or not, and thank you for saying that out of respect. You're the first. I just, wow, I got another opportunity. Isn't this something? So I'm pretty fortunate. And to have guys like this who are hungry, guys who know the difference between a work ethic and being lazy. They know the difference between basketball IQ and non-basketball IQ. They're just a great group to be around, and actually they're the ones that get you going year in, year out. It's the players, it's your coaches, it's your managers, it's the feeling at practice. It's that's just the juice that keeps somebody like me going.
Sam's gotten a lot of the attention for his physical growth during the offseason, but over the last week or so that you guys have been practicing, who do you think's undergone the most basketball growth since you guys last played?
Well, can't really say. Like if it was a horse race, I couldn't pick a winner. But they're all mutters, meaning they're working hard. Does anybody not know what a mutter is? My dad used to go to the track all the time. And when it rained, it got real sloppy. There were horses that some guys knew who to bet on. Now, I'm not talking about betting on the players, but I mean, there are guys who were just really good under tough conditions. So that's what we're finding out now. Practice is a grind for every team in the country right now. You don't, people hide from it, don't want to say it. It's a grind. You're going against the same guy all the time. I think of, if anybody in here had a brother or a neighbor around the same age, and you played in the driveway, on the playground, at the barn, every day, and you're going against the same guy, do you remember how frustrating it was at times? So players have to go through that right now. That's what I mean by the grind. You're in drills. Sometimes the offense has an advantage, sometimes the defense, and you're going against that same guy. Not every time, but close to it. It's how you handle the grind, and you have to be able to say at the end of the day that you've progressed. So it's the progression that we're trying to get them to understand right now as they're going through this step by step. So I can't say who right now. If he does something well in practice, I'm his teammate, and he did it on me, then that made me look bad. I didn't move my feet. I didn't do that. I didn't block out. So every time something happens in practice, something good happened on one end, something not so good happened on the other. So as a coach, you're like, it's a tie. So I can't say one guy. Now, after some practice, I could say, okay, the top 5 guys were these 5. And then you look at the practice tape, not so fast. Maybe 3 of the guys you were right on. The other 2 guys, their practice wasn't as good as it looked. And we do that. I look at every practice tape, try to learn something for tomorrow. So I can't give you another guy because it would have to be a certain day, and I don't do that.
Bo, along the line of grinding and 2 guys going against each other, I think I've been watching Hap and Vito Braun go against each other, and I think yesterday they were really getting at it. What have you seen from Ethan so far, even though it's early, just his ability to go at a big guy like Vito and how he's handling it?
Well, again, Ethan didn't have the ability to have as many hours as Nigel and Vito last year in the summer because of the foreign trip. So Ethan's at about right now where these other freshmen were in July of last year. Seriously. Number of possessions, experience. So he's got to catch on a little quicker in order to get to where those guys were by the time we were at this point last year. But he's not shy. And everybody appreciates that about him. He'll bang. And, you know, we've been mixing up teams in these drills. And I always said to myself, I always wanted to be a guy that in practice, if I was on a certain team that my coach put me on, that the other guys would look and say, okay, good. We have Ryan. All right, we're good there. Okay, who else we got? Just like you do in pickup games and all that, and you look around and you go, I think I'm going to take all the shots this time. I know Ochi used to say that every time he played. He took all the shots. But you know what I mean? The guys look around. If Ethan's on their team, I don't think they're saying right now, ooh, we got Ethan. He's got a lot to learn yet. No, good, we got Ethan. I think that's a good sign.
Bo, Nigel's really impressed in practice with his outside shooting ability. I know you saw this coming, but when you...
Oh, see, you guys get to come to practice, so you get to see that. I was hoping he was going to surprise everybody, but I knew we could never get by with that. Now we just hope he makes them in the game. What do you think?
Seems
He's proven he can shoot it.
Did you...
I
when
think some of you
recruited him-
guys laughed at me, but it wouldn't be the first time.
When you recruited him, did you see him as a viable outside shooter, or did he just go to work this offseason and come back a different type of player in that regard?
I could make up a story. No, I didn't see him as a three-point shooter. I didn't see that. He can get to the free throw line. And physically, he can do some things defensively and all that. And now that he's expanded his game a little bit, isn't that what's fun about what we do? To see these guys grow in different ways. And as we all know, he's different. He only had one question for me 2 years ago when he committed and said he was coming to Wisconsin. He asked me that, Coach, if I become the player of the year my freshman year, is it okay if I go pro? Now, how would you answer that question? And I found out he was just kidding. It'd have to be after his third or fourth year. I don't think it'll be this year. No, he just wanted to get a funny in on me, so he.
Coach, you talk about the event, the Make Bo Pay, and just how you've seen that grow and what that means to the university and the cause that you're working toward.
It was an idea of in the spring we have such a great event now that raised $1 million last year and over $3 million to this point. And in the fall, people kept asking me about Midnight Madness. To me, all those when people talk Midnight Madness, I always looked at it as an experience with the students, with their peers, for our players, to be in the community, to have something. So I was thinking about a way to interact with the students and tie it in with Coaches versus Cancer and a donation. So that's what we came up with. And actually, I had a 3-point. It was a free throw, a 3-point shot, and a half-court shot. So we didn't have time. We realized we wouldn't be able to get all the students through, and it went to free throw, $10, half-court, $1,000, and $1 just to come in the building. Because if we'd have had the 3-point shot, and that was maybe worth whatever, and I'd have had a yard sale at the house.
Bo, how do you like your?
But it's going well. We can't wait till tomorrow. For those that didn't know, it's tomorrow, and it's 3 to 6. But the reason we say 3 to 6 instead of 3 to 7, we get everybody that's in the building, right, Patrick? Then the doors will close, and anybody that's still in the building, they'll get to shoot, because the way they bring them through the lines, for those that maybe haven't seen this, last year it went over 5 hours because they closed the doors at the end of 4 hours, and then there was 500 more students. So, and our players are volunteering their time, and some of them have study groups and different hospital visits and different things they're doing in the community service. So that's why we're doing it the way we are. Should be a lot of fun.
Bo, how do you like your depth in the front court overall, and top to bottom in terms of talent? Could this be the deepest you've been up front?
Well, if you look at last year and you look at Evan Anderson, who in other years, other circumstances, if Nigel doesn't come in and do what he did, Evan Anderson's getting 15 to 20 minutes a game last year. So when you say depth, but we had Evan every day in practice, and he made those guys better. Zebo, even at 6'7", 6'8", he was crafty and he could do some things. So I thought we were pretty deep last year. But you didn't get a chance to see those two guys, for example, play that much because of the efficiency and the early development of the guys I mentioned.
Coach, I know his foot injury kind of held him out of practice for a few weeks, but what have you seen so far from Vito this year, and where do you see him fitting into this whole rotation this year?
On a report card, his singing gets an A+. For those that missed his Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, Freedom. If you Google Richie Havens in Woodstock, I had to wow the players. They didn't know that I knew where the song came from. And the reason I knew, I told some people down in Chicago, was there was a wedding that I attended the weekend before. I was asked to go by a young lady to Woodstock the next weekend. I went home back to Chester, and in my mailbox was my draft notice. You think that brings up good memories? Well, it's not the mail I was looking for at that time. So I didn't go to Woodstock. So I missed Richie Havens singing Freedom and the song. How's that for an answer? A+ in music. So did anybody not see his deal? It's on, isn't it on something? Yeah. What's it on?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay. You might want to check it out. And Richie Havens just passed away recently, by the way. Little history lesson. Vito in basketball, because he is behind, it's a wait and see. But he's trying to catch up. Boy, his energy out there, he's doing some good things. Again, another one of those guys that we're not trading.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.